Before we begin, welcome back to the show. Now, I'm on a mission to spread these conversations to as many people as I can. If you could do me the small favor of clicking the follow button on Spotify or clicking subscribe on YouTube, it does make a massive difference in helping me bring on bigger guests who provide even more value. So thank you and enjoy the episode. 360, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So where does the name come from, 360?
Man, that's a good question, and it's not a great story. I started rapping when I was like 13, but I had a name, Casper. It was like Casper the Ghost kind of thing. It's a very white boy name. And I started rap battling on these internet forums where you would like type raps and go head to head with someone. And I would steal rhymes from like popular rappers like Nas or Helter Skelter and stuff like that. And I ended up getting banned from this forum because I was stealing the lyrics. And my friend was like, man, I've got a spare account under the name 360 if you want to use that. So I started using that. That was when I was about 14. And then once I started releasing music, it was just stuck. So that's kind of how it happened.
So where did he get the name 360 from?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, but he spelt it differently. So he spelt it 3SICCXT. Which is hectic, like can't understand that. But yeah, that's where it came from, man. No, I should probably make up a better story than that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it feels like I'm lying.
Well, I found the name 360 is quite symbolic of your journey now when you look back in retrospect. Like you're still singing, touring and doing what you're doing, but you've almost like done a full 360 of life. You're going through such a big journey and you've seen a lot of things and then you've come back to where you are as like a different version of yourself.
I think that's a great point. Like a lot of people say I've done a 180, but I feel like it actually has been a 360 because it's like all the things that I've gone through, whether it's like drug addiction, success with music and stuff, I feel like it took me away from who I was as a young boy, like as a child. And I feel like where I've gotten to now has been a complete reversal to who I was before I was, I guess, 360 or a teenager, you know what I mean? I feel like I've come back to who I was before all that.
It's interesting that I was having this thought the other day about like with the fame and stuff and you've built this identity as like 360. Do you feel like you've needed the fame to come back to your true self? Like what was the thing that took you away from being your true self? Like why was it so difficult to just be authentic on the rise up?
I think when I was younger, I think my true self, right? And then as I became a teenager, I think going through puberty, really wanting to fit in with the cool kids at school and stuff like that, I started thinking that their approval meant more than being myself. And I thought I had to be something else to gain their approval. So I just started pretending I was something different to my authentic self, which then getting into the rap world, I was from like a middle class family, really great parents, very active in my life, and was suddenly in this kind of rap world where it was people were from the lower class, people from the streets and stuff like that, and it was almost frowned upon to come from a middle class family. To not have it all together, you know what I mean? It was very much, I thought that I had to pretend I was from the lower class and like put on this bravado act, start shaving my head, acting like I was really staunch, like I put on this like aggressive act, you know what I mean? Like try and be intimidating when I was never that person, but I thought I had to be accepted in that world. And that kind of stuck with me for a bit, but then working with Pez, we became super close mates and he saw that I wasn't that. He was like, dude, just be yourself, man. Like people will gravitate to you more. And then when I started embracing who I actually was, that's when the music actually took off.
Because I was looking at one of your rap battles with Keynote, because I my favorite ever movie scene is probably Eminem in 8 Mile. And I was looking at that rap battle and it seemed like it was quite a personal. I don't know if you know what one I'm referring to.
Yeah, I do. I know.
But because that was just the one that came across, maybe because it was the most viral one. But yeah, it's super interesting about finding your truth as well, because the external noise, it's really easy to outsource who you are to the approval of other people. Did you feel like you were too privileged to be a rapper? So did you feel like, it's interesting because usually it's the other way around, right? Like we don't feel like we're good enough to be successful, but yours was almost the inverse. You felt like you were too good to be associating with those.
Yeah. Just to be accepted by it, you know what I mean? Like, to be honest with you though, I think when I did just start to become and just embrace who I was as a person, that's when I became more accepted. Like people didn't really care that I wasn't from a lower class background or from the streets or anything like that. Wasn't even an issue. It's just what I had built up in my head, you know.
Because I think when you're truly yourself, I was talking to a woman this morning about this, like it's sort of like the magnetism. If you aren't yourself, you aren't going to repel anyone away, but you're also not going to attract anyone. If you're sort of just trying to please everyone, you please no one. So how did you find your truth? Because a lot of people talk in this world about being authentic, but when you have thousands or millions of people giving their opinion about who you are, how do you find yourself in a world full of noise?
Great question, bro. Man, I feel like it's been this tug of war for me. Like there's been moments where I've just been myself and been quite outspoken about how I felt, but there's moments where like being outspoken has caused a lot of controversy over the years. And in those moments, I would get viciously attacked online. Had a bunch of these instances where it would just like, I think it was before being called cancelled was a thing. It was like people just attacking me for certain things that I said. And in those moments, I was like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe I need to change my opinions to appease these people because they're saying that my opinions are wrong or that I'm a bad person for having these opinions. So it was like moments where I was being authentic, then the people would disapprove of that. So I was like, okay, I better change who I am to gain their approval again. And it was like this weird kind of joust that I was going through. And I feel like I only started really working this out about 3 or 4 years ago, man. Like I had felt like I needed to please other people more than just be myself, to the point that I'd lost myself completely. It was like people pleasing. It was like dodging confrontation and stuff like that for so long. Navigating interviews, because I learnt what would ruffle feathers. I learnt what would cause controversy, and I was trying to avoid that at all costs because I didn't handle it well in the past. So it was like a death of 1,000 cuts over the years where I had not said what I truly wanted to say, to the point where I lost sight of who I was completely. Went to rehab like 5 years ago, and that I remember going into rehab with this mindset of like, okay, I need to figure out who I am now. Like I haven't spoken up for myself. I've lost my voice over the years so much that I don't know what I stand for. I don't know what I believe in. Started working with a life coach and a mentor who helped me start, figuring that out. But then, like we spoke about before, it was when I started just being myself, it wasn't that I needed to find who I was or figure out who I was. It was just reconnecting with who I used to be. And it's like, that was kind of cool to realize that it's not like I lost myself over the years. It's just that I lost my voice,
So who are you?
That's a great question, man. I'm a child of God. Yeah.
And what does that mean for you?
That's a great question, a deep one too, man. Made in the image of God. To become more like God now in everything that I do is my goal, is to become more like Christ in my life, to study the Bible every single day, to immerse myself in church, in fellowship with others, and to have a heart that aligns with Christ. He was the most loving person that ever existed. He was he's portrayed as being quite a soft man now in today's world, but I think Christ was quite gangster in many ways. Like, he was very outspoken, very forthright, but he also had the perfect balance of grace and truth. And becoming more like him on a daily basis is the goal, bringing him glory and representing his name in a way that honors him.
Because I think God has been perceived to be all loving, all forgiveness, and I think life does require the balance of both challenge and support. So how does that influence you on a daily basis of how you show up to the world and what you do?
When I first started like exploring spirituality and God and faith and stuff like that, I was very much praying to God, my understanding of God at the time, and using him like a smorgasbord, like, give me this, like, give me money, like, help my wildest dreams come true. And where I'm at now, after giving my life to Christ, I realize it's not about that. It's about submitting to whatever his plan is for my life. And whilst I'm doing that, being Christ-like in a sense. It's like what he did with when he was crucified and resurrected. Like, I think we all know the story of like Christ coming down, like God taking on human flesh, dying for our sins so that we could be gifted with eternal life and have a change of heart, right? But I think there's also a blueprint to like the crucifixion and then the resurrection. He gave us like the perfect template to live life, where I think in the world we live in at the moment, we seek instant gratification all the time. It's like we're going straight to the resurrection, but the template of what Christ did was to show that you pursue what is uncomfortable, you pursue the painful thing, and then that leads to the resurrection afterwards, which kind of, I think, is a great thing, especially for men in this world to model their lives after. Like, if you want to be masculine and healthy, a healthy idea of what masculine is, it's chasing and pursuing what is painful and uncomfortable, knowing that leads to a better reward in the end. But if you pursue that instant kind of, like, if you look at Netflix, if you look at like Uber Eats, everything we've got is like this. You can just get the comfort straight away. You can like get the next day delivery. You can porn. You can have access to any women without having to go through the tough time of actually building a healthy relationship. Everything is like sold as this instant gratification in this world. And I think what he taught us is that life comes with suffering, but it's through suffering that's when the resurrection comes. That's when the comfort comes after that. Yeah.
So how do your own personal experiences make you convinced? Was it one moment that made you fully believe in God, or was it a series of reflections?
It was a bit of a process. So like, I've always believed in a higher power. I always believed in God, like the concept of God, but I was very resistant to Christianity. Like, if people mentioned the word Jesus, I would automatically put a wall up. I found it very confronting. And so I would call it the universe. I would always say, I believe in the universe. I believe the universe is God, and he gives me my strength, or the universe gives me my strength, kind of thing. And as I've been looking into it more and more, and especially studying the Bible, I realized that I was kind of off the mark there. But I think I was afraid of saying the word God because it comes with so much baggage. It comes with a very, I guess, distorted view of who God is and what God is. And I think a lot of fringe Christians have given God a bad name by the way they've misrepresented faith. But
how's it been misrepresented? How do you see it?
I think by people being quite hypocritical, saying you have to live this certain way, giving you all these rules to follow and hating you if you don't, but then not really representing it in the way that they claim to. That's one. I think mainly that.
Yeah, there's a lot of moral hypocrisy. But this is what I've been thinking about recently with this concept of God. Have you heard of Pascal's wager?
Nah.
Or if you continued that episode with Boris, you would have heard it. It was near the end, but I'll read you this. So Pascal's wager is this idea that even if you're not sure God exists, it's safer to believe than to risk being wrong. The logic goes something like this. If you believe and God exists, you gain everything. If you don't believe and God exists, you lose everything. So in a way, it's almost like trying to calculate the probability of God's existence and make a decision based on minimizing risk, a kind of rational strategy for comfort or security. But the thing is, faith isn't really meant to be calculated. It's not a problem to solve or a bet to hedge. It's something that comes from experience, surrender, and personal exploration. So how do you encourage people to explore their own faith, given that making people try to rationally calculate the probability of the existence of God is counterintuitive to the premise of faith?
That's a, what's that called? Pascal's wager.
Pascal's wager.
Pascal's wager. That's cool. I like that. Can you repeat that question?
So essentially, it's like I think people struggle with this concept of faith because they're trying to use faith as an instrumental good in their life. Similar to what you're saying, they're misrepresenting God because they're using God as a way to escape something instead of having faith. You know what I mean? That logically, it's a intellectualization of faith, which is it's counterintuitive to the premise of what faith is, which is to surrender. That they're using God as an instrumental good in their life, like they're using God as, like you said before, so that you can have the money, so that they can have all these material things in their life, which is against the premise or the philosophy of religion.
I think, and there's so many moments in the Bible that talk to this, where there's like putting your faith in God. I think a lot of people will think that if I give my life to God, then everything will be good from then on. But it's not that at all. It's like there's so many different stories. Like, do you know much of the Bible?
A little bit.
Like, when Moses parted the Red Sea and they left Egypt, right? That is a great story, like a great analogy for what happens. Like the sea was blocking them from freedom and they were about to get killed. And it's like this kind of analogy or metaphor to surrender everything, just knowing that God might not remove the obstacle that's in your way, but he will provide the way through, kind of thing. There's heaps of stories like that. There's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the book of Daniel, where they're thrown in a furnace and then Christ shows up in that furnace to deliver them from it. It's not about removing the furnace itself, but he is the way through. And I think that's what I've learned since coming to faith is that bad things are going to happen, but you're not alone going through it.
So do you find there's a comfort in having God with you during these challenges? Like how would you describe tangibly your relationship with God?
It's a great question, man. He's like a father, but like also there's a Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I feel like my relationship with God is like that of a father, but one that has unconditional love, not anything you can earn more or earn less of. It's like having a brother and a best friend through everything at the same time. It's definitely a very freeing, man, in the sense that like in moments where things go pear-shaped and everything seems to be falling apart, knowing that you're not alone through that is so comforting. Yeah.
Do you think you needed the struggles that you went through in your life to find God or to find yourself?
Definitely, for sure. Like, we were talking about this the other day, like, would I change anything? Like, would I change my past and not go through a lot of the hectic stuff that I've gone through? And if I had my time over, of course I would do a lot of things differently. But if I ended up not having faith, I wouldn't want anything to change, if that makes sense. Like, I'm so grateful that I've gone through what I have in order to get where I am now.
Yeah, it's interesting because whenever we have regret on the past, like I don't think we realize how much the past has shaped us and the butterfly effect of changing the past and how that would actually change our lives. I'm sure like the things that you love most about yourself have probably been shaped by hardship, and that's the necessary part of growth, is that suffering. And when things don't go to plan.
Well said, bro.
So I want to talk about music as like this creative platform to explore truth. I'll bring you this quote. I think you'll love this quote. I don't think you would have heard it before. It's from Picasso. He says, "Art is a lie that makes us realize the truth."
Art is a lie
that makes us realize the truth. So what it is basically is art is this canvas that we can project our psyche, the things that we're processing onto it, and it gives us an angle or perspective to see it differently. It becomes this creative outlet that helps us realize our truth, gives us our voice to speak our truth so that we can reflect upon what we're processing. So art by itself is not objective in the sense, but it becomes this creative outlet that helps us find our truth. How do you relate that to your relationship with music and how it's been for you to establish your own truth?
Great question. I think being someone who has struggled to actually say what I think, especially when it comes to confrontation or telling people the sufferings that I'm going through. I was never someone who would come up to someone, "Hey, I'm struggling, can we talk about it?" ever. I would just keep it to myself, and I didn't want to be a burden, that kind of thing. And it was only through music did I feel capable of actually expressing what was going on. Like music was, I always felt it came so naturally to just be brutally honest about what I was going through. So it was almost like not living two lives, but like people who knew me had no idea what I was going through, but then would listen to my music and be like, "Dude, we had no idea that you're going through any of this." So for me, it was my only outlet to express truth.
And in that, there would be a universal aspect of where a lot of people would relate to what you're sharing because people don't know how to articulate what they're feeling. And I think that's the power of good music, is it becomes like this universal way of articulating and expressing what is quite difficult to explain to someone.
Yeah, and you develop a bond with like if I listen to artists who can express things that I can't, I feel like I know them personally. I feel like I've shared a moment with them or something like that, even though I don't know them. It's cool.
So with the creation of music, do you find, when you said it comes natural to you, do you find you can just sit down and write lyrics? Like, take me through the creative process.
Yeah, so if it usually when I write, I will channel whatever is going on in my life. So when I made my most recent album, Out of the Blue, a lot of that was, I went through a pretty hectic breakup in that period. So a lot of that was rapping about what was going on in that, because it was just what was at the center of my thoughts. I just had to express what I was going through. So I will just have these kind of, I guess, feelings or experiences that I need to get out somehow, because I'm not really talking about it that often. Like I will talk to my friends more than I used to. So I'll just go down, I'll put on a song, pick the beat, and just kind of find something that matches the emotion that I want to convey. And then I'll just start, it's kind of strange. It's just like you start rapping to it, but it's in gibberish. You're figuring out the flow, how you want it to sound, what kind of syllables fit in the pocket. And then lyrics just start coming. I also will write some lyrics in my phone if things just randomly pop in my head, and I'll go through like on my notes, the stuff that I've written down, and see if there's anything that can apply to what I'm trying to talk about. And then it just kind of gradually starts working itself out. But it took a long time for me to get to this point where I feel comfortable doing it. Like I used to write all my lyrics on like a notepad, and then I would find a beat and try and fit the lyrics to that beat. And I found like I felt like it hindered my flow when I was trying to read. It was like I was reading off a piece of paper, trying to match it to a beat, but I hadn't written it to that beat, if that makes sense. But now it's definitely more more flow based, I guess, like finding the flow and then finding the words that go to that flow. Yeah.
What's the experience of creating the music in contrast to being on stage, singing the music? What are the differences?
I enjoy the creative process more. Well, I think I used to. I didn't like touring that much. I didn't like performing that much, but it's definitely shifted now.
Why was that?
Oh man, I like when I was first starting, I think when I was like 14, 15, 16, I started jumping up on stages and doing rap battles and stuff. And I loved it. Like I used to really embrace the kind of nervous energy that would come from it and just lean into it, and it would bring me out of my shell, and it's like I'd become a different person. And I felt comfortable. But then once I went through the drugs and the partying and the fame and all of that, it's like it took away my ability to just let go. I felt like I either had to be intoxicated or on drugs or on some form of medication to feel comfortable and present on stage. So I felt like I was always in my head. I was always like never quite having fun. It was a bit of a chore being on stage, unless I was wasted. So like the most recent tour we did, which was only a few months ago, I felt like God was putting it on my heart to definitely not take anything now, you know what I mean? Because I'm on certain medications that I'm still weaning off, but I haven't quite stopped them yet. And usually in the past, I would take something, one of the medications that I'm on before going on stage to sort of help me chill out a bit. And I felt like God was saying, just don't do that and depend on me. And then, man, I thought it was the worst idea ever. And going into this tour, got up there and have never felt more comfortable and never felt more alive and present on stage, and actually enjoyed it for the first time in so long. Like after the tour, I was like, usually I would finish a tour and want to chill for about 6 months at least and then go out again maybe. But after 2 weeks after having a break after the tour, I was ready to go again. I was so keen. So it's given me a new ability to enjoy it again.
Looking back, do you know what the source of the need for alcohol and drugs was? Like what wasn't enough to go on stage, or what was the fear?
Yeah, it was never something that I was trying to escape, right? When I was first taking drugs and partying and stuff like that, it was a means of making a good time better. So I wasn't trying to escape. But then suddenly music popped off. Before that, I'd only party on the weekends and do drugs on the weekends because I was broke. I was on Centrelink. And then suddenly...
Even when you were broke, even when your music career was taking off, or was this the real early stages?
Real early stages. Then music kind of took off and had all this money. I was like, well, why stop? You know what I mean? Let's just make this a big party. Not really realizing that what happens when you get addicted. So it got to the point where I was just having a party every time we were performing. I wasn't trying to numb or not feel nervous then. It was like I was just like, let's just go wild, and I'd have a lot of fun. And then it was like I woke up like 6 months to a year down the line and was like, I can't actually stop. Like if I stop, I started getting really sick, going through withdrawals and stuff like that. So that's when it became about escaping stuff, because I was like, that feeling of withdrawals and the sickness that you would go through, I can't go through that. I had to make sure my music career was going well. And the only way to do that was to not go through those withdrawals. You know what I mean? So then it became this like vicious cycle of like using to be able to perform, and then that just stayed with me for probably about 15 years.
Did you find it hard to be alone with your own thoughts? Like obviously you had a lot of company when you were going on tour. Was it difficult to sit with yourself and confront some of these things that maybe the alcohol and drugs were pushing down?
Definitely. I was like, I would go on these massive benders, but the thing is, I was always using, you know what I mean? Like I would go on these big benders, taking cocaine, meth, speed, whatever, pills, whatever, and then stay up for 3 days, have a big party, then everyone would go, and I'd be by myself. But because I didn't like the feeling of like after 3 days partying, you have a massive crash and a come down, I would start taking things like OxyContin and hectic prescription drugs like Xanax and stuff like that. And that would level me out. So it was like this, I'd go up and I'd come down, and I was taking drugs during both those processes, counteracting what I was feeling. So I wasn't actually sitting with my thoughts, I don't think. I was kind of just escaping it and numbing myself. But then when it got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore, it was like I was flooded with all these feelings I'd been escaping from for years. And it's like you're feeling things like as a fresh kid again. It's bizarre, man.
So that's what I'm interested in. What was like the in-body experience like of these times, like when you're coming down from a high? Because like I think we all can relate to that experience of like whether it's alcohol or drugs, or this really good feeling and you're coming down and there's resistance to want to feel average or sit with ourselves. So what was the like tangible experience in your body? Like, could you not access thoughts? Like, where you just felt like almost dissociated?
I think those kind of withdrawal feelings or those come down feelings were just like so hectic for me. Like I would just go straight to the drugs. And it was like almost like an anxious kind of depression feeling, but I don't think I ever associate it with myself. I think I was always like, this is just a result of partying too much kind of thing. You know what I mean? So it was very, very foggy, that whole period. It's hard to really explain it.
So when you can contrast it to the recent tour, like when you look back at touring in a totally different chemical state, the influence of the alcohol and drugs versus now, like how do you relate that to yourself? Like, was that you under the influence of all those drugs and alcohol? Like, or does now feel like more of your truth? Because I always grapple with this idea of like, at our core, who are we? Like when we have all these drugs and alcohol influencing us, like, is that really us? Or do we get put into this like energetic state, like it almost takes us over? And is it really us?
I don't think it is. I think it's it's like yourself, but on steroids, very amplified, almost like a front, like you're putting on this front. It's not really who you are. Definitely felt that. Like it would come out of my shell and be just like this times infinity version of who I was. And now I feel much more like I'm just being myself.
You've spoken before about not surrounding yourself with yes men. Now, during this time, what was your environment like? What were the people in your life? What was that like?
These yes men, like it was very unhealthy, you know, when you're... I think I'd always wanted people to like me and validate me and stuff like that. And then suddenly when you're in the spotlight, everyone wants to be around you, but it's not very genuine. It's like they want to be around you when you're successful, but as soon as you're not, they all scatter. And it was like I was around people who were either using me for my money because I was just shouting everyone drugs. It's like, yeah, let's just have a good time. I've got money. I'll buy everything. Then you're around people who are working with you in business sense, in musical sense, and it's like they're not worried about. They don't have your best interest in mind. Like they're there because you're making money, and the second that you stop making money, you're of no use anymore. So it was like I've very quickly realized once things started going downhill success-wise that everyone that I was surrounded by wasn't actually genuinely there for me, and that was hard to deal with. But there was people like Pez, another mate of mine, Mo. They were always never yes men, but they were always there for me.
Because it's easy to hop on the train when it's going up the hill, and it's incredibly difficult to know who your true friends are and what is actually real in your life when everything's amplified by external success. So what were you thinking at the time? Like, did you truly think that these people had your best interests at heart, or like?
I think I was in denial. You know, I think I was like enjoying myself or thinking I was enjoying myself, but it was like, I think it's like that saying that misery loves company. You know, I was just like trying to party all the time so much that it was like whoever wants to party can be involved, but I don't think I was really considering that they weren't genuine.
What does that self-discovery process look like with so much external noise? Like, I know a lot of people who go through this process of trying to figure out who they are. They do it quite privately, and there's a sense of comfort in that. But when there's so many eyes on you when you're trying to figure out at your core who you are, and there's so many people projecting onto you like, no, this is who you are. How does that influence your own inner journey?
Yeah, it's a battle of like, especially when people's approval mattered so much. It was like, okay, I got to the point in 2020 where I went to rehab and started working with a life coach and all that. I was like, got to figure myself out, but still trying to navigate in this way that wanted their approval, but then wanted to be free from wanting their approval. But I think I'd reached a point in my career where everyone around me had pretty much given up on me. Like my management, they saw the drug abuse that was going on, how my mental health was just horrible. I was so overweight. I was just a mess. And I think everyone has just been like, okay, he's lost it now. Like, he's not coming back. So for me, it was like this determination to be like, well, let's like combine the effort of like, okay, I'm trying to find myself, and let's just write about what I'm going through at the same time. And it was like very therapeutic in that regard. Like, a lot of the songs that I wrote, especially I released 6 in like 2023 that were talking about the things that I was going through. I was dealing with a bit of paranoia throughout the COVID stuff. Like, there was a lot that happened throughout that had me thinking I was losing my mind. And
do you know what was that?
Yeah, so like, this goes into the people pleasing stuff. I think the music industry is quite woke, quite far left leaning, quite progressive, right? And over the years, being surrounded by that kind of industry and wanting everyone's approval, I was kind of just unconsciously going along with it. And then during COVID, it was like the whole vaccine thing, right, became this like, I think it was really gross, this right versus left wing thing, where if you were anti-vax or even hesitant, you were labeled as like an anti-vaxxer or a far right kind of lunatic. And if you were pro-vax or pro-mask on that side, then you were a left wing and on the woke side of things. And I was terminally online in this period. Like, I'd just gotten out of rehab. I was so unwell mentally that I was just like, all I was doing was reading Twitter. And it was before Elon Musk had bought it. So there was these scientists that were trying to speak out and say, hey, these vaccines haven't been tested properly. There is other ways that we can handle COVID. Like, they were talking about ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and all these different therapeutics. They're saying it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And then they were getting banned. It was like all these credible scientists were getting their accounts suspended for trying to speak up. And I started seeing this and being like, something's not right with this. I don't think they should be suppressing any professionals in their field from discussing these things. So that made me lose trust in what was going on. But because of like the whole industry is like this kind of far left Marxist kind of ideology, it was like, I felt like, okay, if I start speaking out about my hesitation when it comes to the vaccines and how this kind of seems a bit sus, I'm going to be labeled as like this far right kind of anti-vaxxer and stuff like that. So it was like this journey of like, okay, I think I'm starting to really drift away from what the music industry approves of. But if I feel like if I start talking about that, it's going to bury my career and ruin me. So I started doing it in like drip feeding it in songs. And like, I did this song called The Truman Show, which was about that. But I thought that when I would express my hesitations, it was going to ruin my career. And then I started testing it out, doing it on little podcasts where I'd say things here and there. Nothing bad would happen. And it just gave me this ability to realize that people don't really care that much. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was a tough period to go through, especially because I was fresh out of rehab, was really unwell, didn't trust myself. So my intuition was saying, okay, you need to be mindful, something's going on here. And then my doctor's telling me that I was going crazy. My doctor's like, you're listening to misinformation kind of thing. So I was like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't really know what to do with myself. And I ended up getting the vaccines because I had a gig that I had to go to. Well, I wanted to go to because it paid really good money, and I'd almost wasted all my money. I almost lost everything. And then they said in order to fly, you need to be vaccinated. So I was like, oh, man, I guess I'll just do it. Surely, the main consensus is that they're safe. And I got vaccinated, and I ended up in the ER twice with like crazy chest pains, very, very strange, like tingling feelings in my chest that I was like, what is going on here? I went to the ER and they were like, it's nothing. It's just anxiety. It's in your head. And then I was like, okay, I'm losing my mind. Like, I'm going crazy here. Maybe I am buying into all this misinformation and I've just lost the plot. Had it happen a few times, went back a few times. Same thing again. So then I was just like, I'm losing it. So I was convinced. It became like a paranoid thing that I was like, okay, I'm losing my mind here. And then I started speaking to some of my friends in the industry about what my experience was, and they had the exact same experience. One of my friends got pericarditis or something like that. She went to the hospital, was told it was anxiety. She had people around her telling her she was an anti-vaxxer for trying to speak out about it. Another friend of mine who didn't actually talk out at all because he was afraid of the same thing. He went, like, his body shut down after having the vaccines. He got all these bizarre immune responses, like shingle type responses. And it was like, what is going on here? And anyone who would say anything would be labeled as this anti-vaxxer kind of alt-right lunatic. And that was like a confirmation. Maybe I'm not crazy. I don't know what happened with my chest, and I got all these tests done. They didn't say that I had anything serious or anything like that, but it was like this constant, it felt like someone was grabbing my heart with electrocuted hands. That's the only way I can explain it. And that lasted for about 6 months to a year, but then it just fizzled away, and now I'm sweet. But that period made me kind of, it was very paranoid, very, very much thought I'd lost my mind, and then realized that I hadn't. But it was very disillusioning.
That's exactly what they do, right? They trap you in the system as well, because you sort of need their approval to succeed, like with the music, right? Especially if they're left. And then they slap these labels onto people to make them scared to speak their truth. And then exactly the medical industry is gaslighting you into your own experiences. And that's, like you said, your own experience, your friends' experiences. And I know hundreds of people, exact same experience.
Really?
Oh, so many people. It's what they've done, right? But I think there's so many people who are starting to speak up. And I think it's almost becoming quite understood. Like that was a big test from the people who were behind that, trying to engineer this virus. And I think a lot of people are becoming awake to what the hidden agenda is. So it's so interesting to hear your experience though about how, you're trying to make your kickstart again your music career, and you almost, your survival is tied to the success of it. So like this is what I mean, they trap people in so they feel like, and then how's this as well, because then you start to convince yourself as well, this is the gaslighting, that like, or maybe I am. They doubt your sanity. This is what they're doing. They make you feel like you're crazy. They associate you with these people because there's no room to figure stuff out. Do you find that in this world, there's no room to be like, put your hand up and say, I actually don't really know. I don't know much about the science, but maybe I want to see both sides. Why do people think I should have this vaccine? Why shouldn't I have this vaccine? Like, let's have credible scientists on both sides debate.
Exactly.
That was silencing only one side, pushing one narrative. I mean, I was ridiculed, bullied, just name everything under the sun during my experience during COVID.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I really respect the people that were speaking out, even in the midst of that, and sticking to their guns, even when they lose followers. And then it's interesting how on the like, to follow that up, they end up getting way more support way more people come and be like, hey, respect, you were standing on it.
Because that's the authenticity piece we were talking about before. You magnetize people when you speak your truth. And that's been a journey of me of late. It's like connecting more with that truth, owning that isn't going to please people, but it's not on me. I think I'm been on a similar journey. I think we're always sort of a universal struggle, the acceptance of other people. And I relate to what you were saying before about this like oscillation between you sort of testing out, you're like shape-shifting versions of yourself. You play one version of yourself in a room, and then you go into another room and you sort of change who you are because you sort of know how to model yourself in different rooms to fit in. And it's just this game of survival, and it keeps you stuck because it's tied to the approval of other people, and it's exhausting, it's draining. But I think there's a yearning now in our society for people to own their truth. And I think there is that ugly journey of like, don't know who I am, and that's okay. I think there's this pressure because what happens is when people have certainty, we confuse that for truth. Did you find that with the COVID? Like everyone's like, this is the way. Yeah. And then because they're speaking with certainty, we confuse it for the truth.
Very true. And it's like we're talking about, it's like toe the line or else. And it's, if you look at the society and the culture that we're in at the moment, is like the Overton window has shifted so far left that anything out of it, even if you're someone who would consider yourself like a moderate leftist, you're considered right wing now. You know what I mean? It just keeps going left, more left and more left. But there's no nuance, like what you're saying, man. There's no gray area to discuss these things. It's just like this classic kind of Marxist tactic where if you talk about identity politics or you talk about LGBT issues and stuff like that, they will label the most extreme label on you. And then it's like a way of kind of
silencing you.
Yeah. So like if you're labeled a racist or like a fascist or homophobe or a transphobe or anything like that, it's like, why listen to anything you've got to say anymore? And it's like a classic tactic that they've used over the years. But it's not working anymore. It's like those words like racist, words like fascist don't have the power that they used to anymore. You know what I mean? Like people are just like, it's just like everyday words that are said now. If you disagree with someone, they've
diluted their own weapon because they've overused it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting too, because they'll label you things like a fascist, but it's like, they're the ones who are the fascists.
They're the ones, yeah, exactly. It's the moral hypocrisy we talked about before. They're doing the exact same thing that they're telling people they're doing.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting tactic. Like you look at like Charlie Kirk, the way they would call him a fascist, you know what I mean? Yet he was the one who was opening up a platform to have these discussions with people. Fascists don't do that. You know, fascists are like these crazy wokies who will be like, don't say anything that doesn't fall in line with our views. It's very interesting, man.
Like I said before, there's no room to have a conversation and a dialogue because people will stop themselves from listening to someone else because they're like, why would I listen to him? Because he's and then insert whatever label they want to use. Because then the problem is that we have at the society in the moment is these echo chambers that we live in, right? Like there's like these ideological tribes that are forming on the internet, left or right. I think most people are more in that middle ground, but I think they're being pushed towards extremes because they don't realize that most people do sit more in the middle and they're still figuring it out. And there's just no room for that anymore.
It is the algorithms that we're on too, you know what I mean? So if like a lot of people are in these kind of political culture war realms, you're getting fed the same stuff over and over and over again. So like look at Charlie Kirk, the way the left would kind of see him as this extremist, you know what I mean? Wild views, fascist, Nazi, all this type of thing. They're seeing little 30-second videos taken way out of context and just thinking that is who he is. They're not actually seeing the full picture. But it goes the other way as well. Like people who fall into the fringes on the right are pretty much the same thing, but just the opposite end. It's a scary time we live in, man.
How do you relate what we're talking about with your faith? Because it's really easy to get doomsday about the world, but there is in faith, there's a sort of a undercurrent of all things will play out the way they're meant to. So how do you balance this tension between the realities of what the world is presenting us, the challenges, and then also this undercurrent of faith, which is designed to give you that peace?
Great question, bro. I think, like I said before, being a child of God, right? What I'm trying to get at by saying that is like before, when I wanted people's approval and validation so badly, I was a child of the world. So it was like I was a child of the culture in the sense that what people approved of is what I would become. Like I would shape my views around what people approved of. And now with faith, it's like it doesn't matter what people think of me. It's how God sees me. And it's like this constant need to remind myself that I'm his son and that I'm loved by him and that he defines who I am. I'm not defined by the culture anymore. And you see that going on in this world that where people are identifying with feelings, like their feelings who their identity is, which is so dangerous. It's like our feelings are fleeting. And I think in a spiritual sense, so often our feelings aren't even ourselves. I think it comes from, it's very layered. It's not just like any feeling I have must be me, must be ascribed to who I am as a person. So like faith now is this giving me this ability to know that, hey, okay, I used to care what people think. I used to be a massive people pleaser, but now that I've found faith and God has come into my life and he decides who I am, it gives me this strength to stand against the culture and what they approve of. And even if it's like me against 1,000 people, it's okay. I can do that where I don't think I could have done that in the past.
So it becomes like a reference point, also like a decision-making framework, because I find what happens is when we have experiences, it's really hard to process them without some sort of criteria or some framework or some reference point. So does it become like almost an anchor, something that gives you a perspective on how to process the challenges or experiences you're going through?
Exactly. I think the Bible decides everything. It's like before it was what people approved of or their validation, but it's like everything, if like the Bible is like a hand guide or a handbook to life. Anything you're going through in your life, you can revert to scripture in some way. And I think it is the most tried and tested way of living our lives, like coming back to it for guidance in everything. And that provides the foundation that I live from now. It's no longer up for grabs by what the world approves of.
How do you find the difference between faith and religion? Because religion's obviously the human mind, people's interpretation of what faith is, and there's so many different religions. So how would you find the difference between faith and religion and how we can think about it in our own lives?
So I think like I remember when I was really exploring it at the start, it was like this, I was constantly saying that what Christianity is and what Christ is about is not about religion, in a sense that like a religion provides the moral framework that we're to live, where we live our lives by. It's like these rules. And a lot of what Christ came to do was abolish the people who were the religious elites at the time, people who were like following the law to a T, but they had no love. They were quite hateful. And anyone who didn't follow that law, they were hateful towards. And he was very outspoken against them and quite savagely he was very forthright and staunchly opposed them. And it was this concept that Christ came to not give us religion, but to give us a relationship with God, to reconcile us with God. But I think he personified what religion actually means. Like he was a religious person, but in the best sense of the word. He wasn't using the law and the 10 Commandments as a way of standing above people, but as just a mirror to show people what they needed cleaning from, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think something I really love about, I guess, faith is the way that it serves as like that framework for people in their lives. Like so many people who have that Christian side in their lives, they're just, their values I see in those people. But then when it's portrayed on social media, like religion has been at the centerpiece of wars throughout history. So it's almost like not throwing the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to thinking about faith in our own lives?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, like I saw the way certain Christians behaved and was like, I want nothing to do with this. Like I want nothing to do with God, because they were so kind of hateful. You know, they were like saying you need to live this way, but they weren't, kind of thing. So it was like, I compare it to like, you know, if you go to a gym and there's all these kind of influencers in there taking pictures with their tops off and stuff like that, and you don't like that, you wouldn't just stop exercising. You know what I mean? It's like...
That's a great point. That's a great analogy.
Yeah, because they're misrepresenting. They're representing it in their way, but it might not represent it in the way that exercise is meant to be represented. And I think that's what's going on with faith. You know what I mean? There's a lot of different representations of it, but there's a right and a wrong way. Do you believe in God?
I believe in, it's similar to what you were talking about before. I believe in there's some higher power. The thing is, I think there's been this there's this muddy waters around the word God. And I believe in something that I've experienced too many synchronicities, and I've had spiritual experiences with my grandma, and I've had all these things confirm there's something, and I've delved a lot into the quantum side of it, and just, I know that there's something greater than, but I think it's really hard to truly understand or comprehend what that is. I've been leaning more into faith in the sense of trusting in the unfolding of the world. I don't go around saying I believe in God, but I also don't say I don't believe in God, because I believe there's something.
You're open.
I'm very, very, very open, because I've had so many experiences and I've interviewed so many people who validated it. But I'm also quite intellectual, so I'm also quite rational, and I try and balance out. I don't want to have blind faith and be naive to what I need to do in this world in order to... I don't want to use faith as a spiritual bypassing, as a way to escape the necessary suffering as a man, to have challenges, to grow as an individual. I'm quite aware that, like we spoke about before, people use this spirituality as almost a way to escape the truth in their own life. And I think that's sort of how I perceive faith.
Have you read the Gospels at all?
No.
I encourage you, bro. Like I feel like it'll blow your mind, because it definitely in Jesus' story, it is about just embracing all of that. It's not about getting rid of that discomfort. You know what I mean?
So do you think someone needs to believe in God specifically, or read these things to really gain the benefits of what believing it was? Like, does it have to be a unified perception of what God is?
That's a great question, because like you will meet people that will be like, you know, all religions are just the same pathway to God, but just with different variations of how they believe you get there. But ultimately, I think, of course I think this way being a Christian, but I do think that there is an ultimate truth. Like, I do believe that Jesus is God in the flesh, and what he said, because a lot of people will say, you know, Jesus was just a spiritual teacher with a lot of wisdom that we can all learn from. But if what he said is true, he said that he is the only way to salvation. He is the only way to reach God. Like, so I think it's, I believe that there is ultimate truth, if that makes sense.
Because I find it difficult to believe in things without my own personal experience. That's why I said I'm leaning more into faith, but I think trusting my own personal experience is what has protected me from things that harmful social narratives. I didn't buy into the things that I've been told to do, and it's really been an anchor for me. So there is that like yin and yang, there is that balance of like, okay, I want to use my personal experiences as a compass, but there are some things that the mind can't comprehend. So there's been a sort of infusing of faith recently, but that's where I wrestle with, do I need to label it as something to gain the benefits from that process of surrendering and letting go?
Do you feel like when you were like talking about the COVID stuff, right? And standing for what you believed in those moments, do you feel like you were led by your intuition? Like, did you feel a strong, like, say the world is going this way, but there was something in your gut that was saying, hang on, something's not right here? Or have you had moments in your life where your intuition or your gut was so strong, and when you followed it, it's always been right?
Yeah, my intuition was definitely switched on, but it's also hard to disentangle that from, I guess, the influence of important people in my life, like mum's role in that as well. And it's like, okay, what actually got me to arrive at that conclusion as well? Because there was so many times where I was ostracized and bullied, and I had this inner knowing, like, how do these people believe so wholeheartedly when they're just a bunch of footballers, young footballers who have no idea about it? I had this intuition, this voice, and I'm like, what is that voice, right? Like, you could say, you might tell me that that's God, but it could be just a survival mechanism to keep me safe in something else. So I don't know.
I think it often is like an instinct that we learn to keep ourselves safe, but I do think it sometimes is like divine guidance in a sense as well.
No, I think there's something powerful about faith, and the point I'm trying to make here is, like, does everyone need to? Does it really matter if I am using God indirectly, but I'm not reading scripture, I'm not going to the church, I'm not doing all those behaviors which would look like someone who believes in God, but I'm embodying the teachings indirectly, unconsciously, because I'm thinking about letting go and surrendering, and maybe that's part of his teachings, but I'm not directly associating myself as a son of God. What's the difference between someone like myself, if I was doing that, than someone who's directly like yourself involved?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, like, there's a lot of people who would fall into more new age spiritualism, where they believe in God. They don't believe we can truly understand God. So they'll be like, they'll have their own understanding of what God is, or like an admittance that we can't understand or comprehend God. But I just, for me, I do feel like the more I've read, like when I started reading the Bible, it made no sense. It was like, it just was gibberish to me, you know? And now over the last 3 years, it has come alive in ways that I never expected. And I think for a time when there was no technology, there was no social media, I can't think of a better way for God to truly reveal himself than how he has done it through the Bible. From like the Old Testament all to the end of the New Testament is this constant like foreshadowing of like Christ coming to earth. And I think once the more I've read it and the more I've studied it, it has become undeniable to me. So it's hard to explain, I think, the difference. I think it's like almost putting into practice those things like the surrender element of it, and being a good person and things like that. I think that's great. But I do think if there is like an ultimate way to reach heaven or to reach salvation, I think it is revealed in the Bible.
It's a fascinating one.
It's a great topic to talk about, man. Yeah.
That's why I love having these conversations, because this is the figuring it out that I don't think many of us do.
You said that you've been leaning into faith recently, right? Yeah. Do you feel like it has become like more people are becoming more open to faith?
Oh, 100%.
Are you noticing that?
But then again, it's like, is it because of the people I'm surrounding myself with? You know what I mean? But I do think there's a rising, I think COVID was that chaos that has provided there's also becoming more of an order around consciousness. And I think people are starting to become a bit more aware. It forced people to reflect on things more. I think there's definitely an opening up around this, but I don't know, again, once how much I'm biased by the people I surround myself with, because I've also put myself in different rooms with people who are just,
shut off and don't even have the time of day for that. But then also, I don't know, it's interesting because I meet some people who are not into consciousness at all. Just that, but have this unwavering faith and belief in God. So there is a lot of overlap, and it's interesting. What do you reckon it was about COVID that sort of caused, because I've noticed this too, right? I've noticed 2020, it was like a reset button where people were like, hang on, why am I working this job? Like, why am I slaving away doing something that I actually hate? And it caused people to ask bigger questions. But it seems like there is this And I feel the same way as you. Like, is it because I'm just around people? Like, is it my algorithm just feeding me this stuff? Or is it actually like happening? Why do you think it caused such a big, like, why moment?
I think because it acted as a circuit breaker. I think we live in default, right? Like we wake up, we go to work, we pay the bills, we have relationships that are mediocre. We just get through life. And I think it forced people to get out of the habits and routines that they'd instilled, and they had to think, and it just forced them to reflect on themselves, because also there was so much fear mongering around COVID, and I think that brought up the idea of death in people's mind as well. So death elicits this response about what is truly important and meaningful in my life, and I think that did become front of mind for a lot of people, and that's what has awoken consciousness up in our world too.
Wow, we live in a crazy time, eh? It's crazy.
But I think it also, every generation would probably say the exact same thing, because it's society's ever evolving. And I think if you lived 50 years ago or whenever, a bit longer when the wars were going on, like we'd be saying the same things. There's always going to be this element of like chaos and destruction. It's just the cycle of nature. You know what I mean? Birth, death, evolution. That's just nature.
I think also the, like the pendulum swinging, like the pendulum went so far left, and I think now, the far left kind of cooked it. You know what I mean? They destroyed it in themselves, and now that everyone saw the way they handled when everyone was gearing towards them, and now the pendulum is going that way. And I think faith is always definitely tied to more right leaning in a sense of political ideologies and stuff like that. So I think it's kind of a natural shift away from that direction, if that makes sense.
No, that's exactly what I'm seeing now. But then again, it ties back to my own little echo chamber, maybe.
It's cool.
All right, any concluding thoughts?
Hey, this has been a great conversation. I wasn't sure where this was going to go, but it's been really awesome, man.
No, pleasure to have you. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you for listening to the episode. I hope you got a ton of value out of our guest today. Now, if you enjoyed that episode, don't forget to click the follow button on Spotify, and also click the 3 dots and click rate show. Makes a massive difference in helping grow the show and bring on even bigger guests. And also, if you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It does make a massive difference. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.